whosoever believed in him shall not perish, then God does not.
La compañía demostró de 150 minutos usando una de 44.056 Hz. Esto mostraba que la tecnología estaba lista, pero faltaba un estándar unificado. Pero en 1979 todo cambió. Philips y Sony decidieron unir fuerzas para desarrollar lo que llamaron el disco compacto. La colaboración entre los ingenieros de ambas compañías, incluidos Heming,
Like we were saying, every song we play on WRNR on this show is by request.
El talento, la tecnología.
Tecnologías que permanecen cerradas durante 12 horas debido a la marcha ciudadana.
Sin embargo, el Ministerio de Economía reiteró que la estrategia de diversificación de importaciones, con acuerdos a medio y largo plazo y compras puntuales, permite garantizar un suministro estable, con casi la mitad de las compras procedentes de países políticamente.
That's Utah Valley University. And you know, take 5 or 10 minutes.
público británico, a través de su programa. Y cerró
What would be his left side? Right, because I'm looking at the video and I see it on the right. That would make it his left side was ripped open. Probably completely severed. I've never seen blood flow from a person. And so when I first saw the video, I was stunned. It was so crisp and clear. I wondered, wait a minute, is this AI? Is this fake? I played it again. I played it again. Then I looked around, found other videos. Like, oh my God, this is real. And I began coverage on my radio Shortwave. So from the moment I saw this happen, I believed he had suffered a mortal wound and would not survive. And President Donald Trump announced this afternoon that Charlie Kirk had.
Pronóstico meteorológico para Taiwán para el jueves 11 de septiembre. En el norte y centro de la isla, mayormente soleado, con una temperatura mínima de 25 grados centígrados y una máxima de 34. Y en el sur, mayormente nublado, con una temperatura mínima de 25 grados centígrados y una máxima de 35. Hasta aquí el informativo. Paco Nájar se despide, dejándoles con el resto de la programación en español para el día de hoy.
das crianças em meio ao contexto de guerra.
Oggi celebrate la giornata nazionale dei bambini polacchi vittime della guerra.
Hoje você celebra o Dia Nacional das Crianças Polonesas Vítimas da Guerra e recorda simbolicamente seus sofrimentos e sua contribuição para a reconstrução da Polônia após a Segunda Guerra Mundial. Lembrem-se em suas orações e em seus projetos humanitários também das crianças da Ucrânia, de Gaza e de outras regiões do mundo atingidas pela guerra. Confio em vocês e nas crianças que hoje sofrem a proteção de Maria, Rainha da Paz, e os abençoe de coração. O próprio Jesus não morre em silêncio, disse o Papa na catequese, mas com um grito que abrange tudo. Dor, abandono, sangue e oferenda, o sinal máximo de uma vida que se entrega. Leão XIV recordou assim que existem momentos na vida em que guardar tudo dentro de nós pode nos consumir lentamente. Jesus nos ensina a não ter medo do clamor, desde que seja sincero, humilde e dirigido ao Pai. Aos soldados peregrinos de língua espanhola também motivou a nos unirmos a Cristo neste momento de provação da humanidade.
Pidamos al Espíritu Santo que nos ayude a dar voz a...
Shot up in bed. Few people even knew it happened. Republicans just took it like they always do. And now Charlie Kirk is dead. You folks in the GOP, you elected officials, you better recognize real fast what time it is or resign.
When is the best time to talk to your family about staying in touch during a disaster?
We know that every father in Yahweh does not sin.
Yes, I just had a question. If someone was interested in moving down there but putting in a prefab home, do you guys have any acreage or any room, even if a person had to purchase land or whatever? Is there any room down there for someone to put like a mobile home or something down there? Because from your
Yeah, let's live on the newcomer land.
resident house.
Yeah, that's where I want to live. Any land for sale? Oh, yeah.
Désormais, l'antisémitisme est puni plus sévèrement en Roumanie. Comment est-on arrivé à cette modification législative? Explication dans un commentaire proposé par Roxana Vassile en français avec Clémence Lheureux et Diaconescu.
Dans les années 1930, plus de 750 000 Juifs vivaient en Roumanie. Aujourd'hui, près d'un siècle plus tard, leur communauté compte moins de 2500 personnes. Pendant l'entre-deux-guerres, la Roumanie avait proportionnellement à sa taille la troisième communauté juive d'Europe après la Pologne et l'URSS. Mais les événements historiques qui ont suivi, tant sur le plan extérieur qu'intérieur, ont eu un impact radical sur l'existence de cette minorité nationale. Les politiques antisémites et l'Holocauste ont décimé les communautés juives. Puis les survivants ont massivement émigré en
Você mande o áudio de volta pra mim, vai mandar o áudio de volta pra mim. Você manda de volta pra mim de novo. Tá bom. Eu quero repetir aqui do Roberto Carlos, a Amazônia, ao oferecido a todos que gostarem da música e pra você também, todos os seus companheiros. Obrigado, aqui da Bolívia, muita saudade do meu esposo, que está no Maranhão. Boa noite, Paulo Isabel. Alô, meu trabalho. Obrigado. Pra você. Obrigado. Rapaz, olha, o garimpeiro da Bolívia. Estamos ouvindo aí, o garimpeiro da Bolívia.
boa noite para você. Eu sei que você deve estar com saudade grande da sua esposa lá no Maranhão. Sentir o cheiro dela, o abraço dela, o carinho dela, né? Estar perto dela. Mas daqui uns dias você tira um tempinho aí da Bolívia e vem para o Brasil matar essa saudade que é tão grande aí dentro do seu peito e do seu coração, né? Muito obrigado, meu amigo. Garimpeiro da Bolívia, o brasileiro do Maranhão, que está com muita saudade da esposa. Já já você vai ouvir o Roberto Carlos cantando Amazônia, daqui a pouquinho.
O Reginaldo Ferreira de Londrina, do Paraná, está respondendo o programa, Maurício, está gostando muito.
Obrigado.
E ele pede para ouvir a nossa secretária, Cristina Miranda.
Vamos tocar com a Júlia Graciela? É a mesma música. Pode ser? Júlia Graciela, linda, precisa de seguranças, boa aparência para a secretária. E vai, né? Tem que ser muito bonita e educada. E vai embora. Tem mais gente aqui do Tocantins. Boa noite.
Boa noite.
Boa noite.
Tenho aqui pra pedir pra você mandar um alô pra galera lá no geral, tá ouvindo na rádio, no município de Ponte Alta. Queria que você mandasse um alô pra minha mãe e pro meu pai. Tô ouvindo na rádio lá e queria pedir amor lá. O exemplo tá mais do som, no dia que eu saí de casa.
Tá bom.
Um alô lá pra minha mãe e pro meu pai lá. Sebastião e Manuel. Gente, bom fim, tal.
En Roumanie, ni de courant antisémite, ni d'organisation antisémite. Sylvie Wexler rappelle le cadre légal de la liberté d'expression.
Je ne vois absolument aucune restriction à la liberté d'expression. Dans de nombreux cas, portés devant la Cour européenne des droits de l'homme, il a été clairement établi que l'antisémitisme et la promotion du culte des criminels de guerre sont des pratiques qui de société entière, la démocratie elle-même, et que la lutte contre ces pratiques ne constitue pas une restriction de la liberté d'expression. J'en suis de incident à caractère antisémite est survenu en ligne. Il y avait
At the tone, 1 hour, 22 minutes, Coordinated Universal Time.
Little children, let no man deceive you. He that doeth
El año pasado, justo antes de nuestro entrenamiento con el Movimiento de Solidaridad Internacional, el colectivo liderado por palestinos, fundado en 2001 durante la Intifada de Al-Aqsa o Segunda Intifada. El Movimiento de Solidaridad Internacional reúne a activistas internacionales que utilizan su presencia, privilegios legales y acciones directas no violentas para ayudar a resarcir los intentos israelíes de robar, sabotear, acosar, atacar o asesinar palestinos. Pasamos la semana juntos como camaradas, aprendiendo de la gente, comiendo bien, quedándonos fuera hasta que solo los perros callejeros vagaban por las calles y fumando los cigarrillos mal enrollados a mano de ajenos. 6 de septiembre, Aishenur se marchó a las 10:20 de la mañana para asistir a una manifestación pacífica semanal protestando contra el asentamiento israelí ilegal de Ebiatar en
Anti-immigration protests now in a lot of big cities. This past week in Chicago, these effing nitwits in Illinois. I mean, I don't know. Is there something in the water out there that makes a lot of people in Illinois assholes? Because you certainly got one for governor, Pritzker, and pretty much his whole family, I think, based on their public activities. Is there something out there in Chicago and in the Midwest that, makes you people nuts? And protesting the immigration rights. If 50 people a weekend are shot in Chicago, 5 or 10 or more killed every single weekend, and you think this is normal? There's something wrong with you. That's not normal. And they're all out there now, they're answering and saying, it is here. Well, it's not normal for the rest of us. And if you want to live like savages, you go right on ahead and live like savages. But we are going to have law and order. And if you people in Chicago want to know, want to be known as third world savages, we will refer to you. Oh, he's a third world savage from Chicago. And everybody will understand. But we're going to enforce the law. And now, another killing. Sniper rifle shot hit Charlie Kirk in the neck today at Utah Valley University in College. So, you guys on the left are like always against gun ownership. I notice none of you have come out to say anything about this gun violence today. None of you. And I know why. Because you don't mind gun violence when it kills conservatives. Well, you know what? I think it's time that we on the right realize that the left has breached the social contract. They lie, they cheat, they steal, and they murder to get their way. And I think it's time that we on the right realize we are at war. Whether we knew it or not, whether we realized it or not, whether we wanted it or not, war has been thrust upon us. To my fellow conservatives, to my fellow Republicans, I say we cannot coexist with people who want us murdered. We cannot coexist with people who want us murdered. I believe the Democrat Party has become a domestic terrorism organization masquerading as a political party. And I think it's time we acknowledge it and start taking action.
Turquía, deseando por sus pies. Ahí nos envió unas pistas de esta ciudad de Córdoba en la que resido. La primera vista que podéis ver es una fuente con flores alrededor. La otra vista es un puente romano sobre el río Guadalquivir y al fondo la mezquita y catedral. La última foto es un parque para pasear y descansar de los seguros. Me gustó mucho de poder ir ahí. Espero que podáis disfrutar de estas vistas de la ciudad de Córdoba en España. Espero recibir pronto vuestra tarjeta QSL, pues os envío el informe de recepción el día 2 de julio. Sigo escuchando con asiduidad nuestros interesantes programas, los cuales me gustan mucho. Bien apreciados amigos, recibid mi aprecio y os agradezco vuestra atención. Hasta pronto, deseando lo mejor de Santa María. Muchas gracias por las vistas de Córdoba.
Yo tengo por
Laudetur Jesus Christus. México Señal Internacional, la onda corta de Radio Educación, nuestros monitoristas, radioescuchas, son lo más importante. Por ello, abrimos este espacio para agradecerles. Hoy queremos reconocer y saludar sonoramente a Rob Den Boer, quien dio su reporte de recesión realizado el 1 de julio desde Netherlands. Gracias por estar a la escucha de Cultura México, Señal Internacional, la onda corta de Radio Educación. XEPPM, 6585 Hz, banda internacional de 49 metros, desde la Ciudad de México.
God required a full broadcasters, always on, always there when you need us. Brought to you by this station and the National Association of Broadcasters.
You say your vehicle has airbags, high-impact bumpers, and you always wear your seatbelt. So far, so good. But if you should cut in front of an 18-wheeler on the highway and make that truck jam on his brakes, all of your high-tech safety features just might sound like this. It can take a truck twice as long to stop as a car. For your own safety, give those big rigs a lot of room. Remember, tangle with a truck and you lose. A public service message from the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration.
2 p.m. here in Metro New York City this 10th day of September 2025. So the left wing has said nothing about gun violence after the Charlie Kirk killing.
Mix of jokes and banter before going off to film. This was in 1970, I think. Became an international entertainer and actor. Jay Rafferty was also in the band, receiving international recognition with Steelers Wheel and as a solo artist. Anyway, let's move on to the third short feature.
こちらは RNI の日本語番組です。
As always, thanks to Rose and Mama, and welcome to another short feature where we are in Glasgow, Scotland, with singer-songwriter, keyboard, piano player, storyteller and history teacher Beth Malcolm. Born in the Southern Highland city of Perth, it is fair to say that her presence in the Scottish music scene has been meteoric, with the first EP, Choose My Company, in 2019, Kissed and Cried in 2023, and the album Folk Moses in 2024. She received the Danny Award at Celtic Connections Festival in 2019 and was awarded Scots Singer of the Year by BBC. 960. UT Tuesday, September 9th at 0300. Anniversary QSO for all shows that week. The high power show will be repeated at 10 kilowatts from channel 292 Germany at 17 UT on 3955 and 9670. It's not clear whether that is also on Tuesday or the next day, Wednesday. And he says it will be a separate show on channel 292 at 16 UT, Wednesday, 10 September. In Australian DX News, Rob Wagner in Victoria reports on 7225 Sichuan FM radio in Chengdu, China. August 23rd at 10:15 in the language listed as Norsu, also known as Sichuanese, spoken in southwestern China. A fair signal, not to be confused with another similar sounding language spoken in Papua New Guinea. Radio Vancouver is getting more and more transmitters back on the air, still with some problems. On UT September 2nd, they were heard in English on 6,000 and also 9710 kilohertz, around 0200 UT, according to Tony Pavic in BC and Ron Trotto in Illinois. However, when I tried the next night, UT September 3rd, nothing heard on those frequencies. But the following night, UT September 4th, they were both on for long hours. Good modulation on 6,000. 9710 would have had good modulation, except it was constantly breaking up, as heard in more than one remote receiver. 9710 was still on at 0635 when I quit for the night. There is a period when it has co-channel interference from Vatican Radio in Ukrainian and Russian between 0440 and 0520. And then September 4th at 1417, I was getting them on 3 or possibly 4 frequencies at once. 15140, 13780, 11760, and something on 15230, probably also Havana. And 15140 has been on the air for the English broadcast at 19 until 20 UT, although a very weak signal around here. That English broadcast have not been heard for many months. They used to have 2 different hours of English programming each day, and maybe still do. But in the British DX Club, Alan Pennington reports the first hour of programs, repeated from 0457, included a mailbag show with Ed Newman and listener letters at 0432, and again at 0532. The European DX Council is in trouble. Christian Guibaudot writes, and it is received via Dario Gabrielli in the AER group. Dear friends, Chrissy Brand and I, Christian Guibaudot, have stepped down from our roles as Secretary General and Deputy Secretary General. I remain in office on an interim basis pending appointment of new leaders. Unfortunately, no one has come forward to replace us. And since the end of the COVID-19 pandemic, we have only noticed a lack of interest in EDXC activities. The 2024 meeting in Estonia was a success, thanks to strong participation of SDXL members from Finland. For 2025, no member club is offered to host our annual conference. We were able to meet thanks to an invitation from the Swedish club SDXF to participate in their annual DX Parliament. A very interesting and friendly meeting, but there were only 12 of us from EDXC. So, are you still interested in EDXC? I'd like to know if at least one person is offered to lead the association. Will it be possible to hold a meeting in 2026? If we don't receive responses, we could be forced to dissolve the European DX Council. That would be in 2027, which would be a tragic anniversary when it would celebrate its 60th anniversary, says Christian Guibaudot about the European DX Council. Via Caricalio, here's the planned schedule for the monthly broadcast of the low-power Scandinavian Weekend Radio from Finland. It's always on the first Saturday of the month. It's starting the previous UT Friday at 2100, which is midnight in Finland. So that's September 5th and the 6th. 6170 will be in use for the entire 24 hours with 2 different 25-meter frequencies. 11690 at first, but for the last 3 hours, starting at 18 UT Saturday, 11720. From Radio France and via Le Monde and Mike Cooper, there was a strike declared by the unions at Radio France from
August 25th until September 1st, but back to work on the 2nd. Not clear if this affected shortwave broadcasts at all. Richard Langley in New Brunswick reports, we retreated to 15 minutes of English from All India Radio, following its French hour at 19:30. That was on 9620, September 3rd at 20:30. The technicians didn't cut the transmitter right after the conclusion of French. An interesting program, but it was not aired in its entirety. Via David Foster in Australian DX News, the Voice of Indonesia sent a message about the 7300 transmitter. We would like to inform you that the broadcast of RRI Program 3 is primarily intended for Indonesian communities residing in border areas adjacent to neighboring countries. As part of our domestic public broadcasting services, we strive to consistently offer the best services for our audience. They remain coy about transmitter location and power, David says. Of course, the frequency since then has changed to and apparently remains on 7205. I've filed the following under international. It really applies to all media. Some comments from John Filiozzi about advertising. Or at least in the laissez-faire caveat emptor way it is permitted to operate. It is a scourge of humanity. It gets to interrupt far more important content and messages willy-nilly with inane offerings that misdirect attention and regularly stretch truth to monumental proportions, period. More about the Iranian clandestine on 15540 we mentioned last week. Transmitter site believed to be France. David Koenig of Interval Signals Online was listening again on Friday, 29 August. It crash started at 1803 UT and finished abruptly at 1900, confirming a nominal Friday only scheduled at 18 to 19. Good reception via the remote in Baghdad. Ron Howard was also listening to this via the remote in Kuwait, August 29th, 1903. There were Persian monologues about Iranian and Jewish relationships, and played some Jewish folk songs. There were long-standing relations between Iran and its Jewish community before the 1979 revolution. They are related civilizations. Although the name of the station, Radio Melat Iran. Japan, Takahito Akabayashi in Tokyo tells us, from September 1st to October 31st of next year, the period designated by Japanese Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications as the second phase of special measures for suspension of AM station operations. During this period, AM commercial stations can suspend their AM. If no significant issues happen, they will be permitted to switch to FM broadcasting starting in the autumn of next year or later. 22 commercial AM stations have applied for this phase. Of these, 6 have already declared the complete FM transition and suspended AM. I'll just mention the frequencies: 1233, 1530, 765, 864, 1269, and 1116 kilohertz. Most of the others will preserve AM broadcasting in parallel with FM, suspending all or part of AM relay stations and or reducing AM transmitting power. The so-called Russian pirate radio on 3940 sent an EQSL from this address, podradio@mail.ru. Roger in Germany again located it by direction finding in Kaliningrad and recorded this ID.
Вы слушаете русское пиратское радио. Наши передачи вы можете принимать в диапазоне коротких волн 75 метров в странах Восточной Европы, Украины, Прибалтики, Республики Беларусь, а также на территории европейской части Российской Федерации на частоте 3940 кГц.
В эфире выпуск музыкального глобуса.
Our contributor Igor in Russia says, I know for sure the transmitter's owner welcomes the ongoing war. I don't know who produces the Radio Wagner program, but the Radio Club and Music Wave radio hosts use 3940 as an opportunity to be heard. Broadcasting along with propaganda is a matter of their conscience. And Roger Tower in Germany says, I've never doubted that, especially when you've been broadcasting for years at presumably 20 kilowatts from a well-protected X-plane. Music and propaganda have always been a good mix. If you also present yourself as a pirate station, you're taking advantage of the positive image of Radio Caroline and others among many listeners who don't seem to understand this, or ignore it just to get one of those forgery-proof EQSLs with embedded C2PA content. They are kilohertz, megahertz, and gigantic hertz, Rotor Radio 2311, a non-commercial service, as is our website, rotorradio.com. Our thanks this week for financial support from Russell Lay, who sent a contribution via PayPal in U.S. funds, but not necessarily, to WORADIO@yahoo.com. One may also contribute via money order or check on a U.S. bank to Glenn Hauser, P.O. Box 1684, ENID, OK, 73702. Ron Howard reports on 7340, National Unity Radio, broadcasting from Taiwan, directed to North Korea. Coordinator remote in Japan, Tuesday, September 2nd, at 12:43, with a minute in English, a quotation. Don't count the days, make the days count, attributed to Muhammad Ali. Very poor muffled audio and light North Korean jamming. He says most of these types of stations broadcast to North Korea are now off the air, such as Voice of Freedom. Sekyung of the Northeast Asian Broadcasting Institute in Seoul says it was on 5920 or 6045 and FM, but it ended completely August 31st. The last transmission was at 1301 UT. And Ron Howard got this from ChatGPT. Voice of Freedom was a clandestine psychological warfare station operated by South Korea's Ministry of National Defense, aimed to penetrate North Korea with news of the South, stories about North Korea's regime, and even K-pop culture. Medium Wave News has an article from 38 North and other sources about the Korean radio battle. The propagandists and censors at the Workers' Party of Korea can probably hardly believe their luck. For decades, they've battled against a constant daily flow of uncensored news and info into North Korea, directly contradicting the stories they tell their own people about Kim Jong-un, the peninsula, and the world. But in the last 3 months, everything has changed. The battle has taken a decisive turn in North Korea's favor, and they did not need to do a thing. Since May, the number of hours of foreign radio programming into North Korea has been reduced by almost 80%, and the level could fall even further over the coming months. Medium Wave News, an article by Ramy Humbert about Mexican social stations. There's a law that codifies a problem that went to the Supreme Court in 2021. The agency did not provide for transfer of social concessions. Someone died at 79, and the renewal of his station was denied. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of this decision. There are 79 radio stations and 4 TVs that are social concessions issued directly to people, physical persons. A concessionaire could die tomorrow, and a radio station would be forced off the air for good as a result. Even a station with years on the air and existing listeners. This does not apply to commercial stations that are transferred to the deceased estate and then on to specific individuals or a company composed of the heirs.
Brussels. We received it for a project that brought together our partner towns, Rosta in Italy, Bad Kreuznach in Germany, Zator in Poland, and Jeseník in the Czech Republic. The delegation had about 40 people visiting us, including both adults and children, who sang about the family. It was a beautiful gathering here in Bornica.
Bornica and Rosta have now shared 22 years of partnership. In the future, their cooperation could expand to new areas. Giulia Angelone, councillor of Rosta, shares her vision.
Secondo il mio punto di vista, però, per essere più concreti e immediati si potrebbero già attivare.
I believe we could create joint cultural activities, even remotely, such as art exhibitions and video screenings.